Okay, so I know my video on my bubble map got cut off there for a minute, but I ended with people are more equal with foraging, and you'll see my evidence later. So I went ahead and typed up my essay, and I'm going to walk you through it. And this video will be on Canvas for you to go back and look at as you are tweaking your own. Yes, I am going to give you advice on your paragraph. Some of you will get some YouTube videos that reteach how to write a good paragraph, because after showing you some of your peers' examples and my example, I have a feeling some of you are still going to claim that you're done when you're not. So the first thing I want to go through is my introduction. Now, I'm going to read it out loud, and then let's think about something that does not make sense. Would you rather have a poor health from the foods you have stored or constantly have to find healthy foods? These are the downfalls of a farming life and a foraging life. If I had to choose, I would choose foraging. Foraging for food is better than farming because it is a less stressful lifestyle, it requires less work, and it helps everyone feel more equal to one another. Okay, well, first I'm going to highlight my thesis statement. All right, blue for my thesis statement. I chose my topic, foraging for food is better than farming. Now I have my 3 reasons why. I say it's less stressful, 1, it requires less work, 2, and it helps everyone feel more equal, 3. But now let's look at my catch. All right, my introduction, my hook to the reader. Would you rather have a poor health from foods you have stored or constantly have to find healthy foods? ? If I look at that sentence and then look back at my thesis, they don't match. My thesis would have to match my hook. If I talked about in my thesis statement, that there is in blue, about healthy foods versus bad foods, this first sentence would make sense. But because it is not, Miss Reese needs to go back and edit. So I'm going to take this out. But we can find downfalls for a farming life and a foraging life. Now, I'm using, like everyone else should, have out already their own evidence, their own worksheets, their own texts, their articles, because you have to constantly go back to them if you want to be a good writer and if you want to use evidence properly. Right now, you may not see it, but I am looking at, was farming a good idea? And the very back page, the last paragraph. It says, there is no question that the development of settled agrarian societies set us humans on a path that has brought us to the highly advanced and technologically sophisticated way of life we enjoy today. All right. So I'm going to use that, right? Everyone can relate to technology. And because I know, I've already read on this subject, and you have already hopefully read on this subject and know much about this subject, that you could pose this question to your reader. Would you rather live in a society with all new things or in a society where everyone was happy and stress-free, question mark. Okay, now if I read this, I said foraging for food was, or sorry, everyone was, but foraging for food is, and I want to make sure that I'm doing that in the same time period, either in the future, in the past, or present, and because of that, everyone is. So would you rather live in a society with all new things, or in a society where everyone is happy and stress-free? And I don't really need this next question, or this next sentence, so I'm going to take it out. And now I've edited my introduction, and I have 1, 2, 3 sentences. Would you rather live in a society with all new things or in a society where everyone is happy and stress-free? If I had to choose, I would choose foraging. Foraging for food is better than farming because it is a less stressful lifestyle. It requires less work and helps everyone feel more equal to one another. All right, so I have my introduction done. So now let's look at my first body paragraph. Well, I want to relate to my audience, and the way I did that was compare it to today. I said today, trying to have a stress-free life is hard. Even farmers have it hard. People believe foraging is just as hard or harder than farming. So I'm going to stop there. First, I compare it to today. This is what your reader would relate to the most. They live in this time period, so they understand. I mentioned farmers because sometimes your reader may think farmers have a pretty easy lifestyle. But I'm saying they have a hard life too. Then I go on to write because most people believe hunters and gatherers had a hard life and that it was even harder than farming. Then I bring in my evidence to prove these people wrong. So my evidence, I have my topic, stress-free. All right, I'm trying to explain stress-free. And I wrote, according to, and here's my article title, quotated because that's how you show the title of an article along with capital letters. And I wrote, but according to, was farming a good idea? And then I write because it says archaeologists have learned that. Okay, I don't need that in quotations. I'm just telling you what the archaeologists have done. They have learned. But what I do quote is word for word what these archaeologists have learned according to the article. I have my 3 dots here because it's not a complete sentence that I am quoting at first. I'm using part of a sentence. And the part of the sentence I'm using says, hunter and gatherers are not necessarily worse off than farmers. Uh-oh, Miss Reese needs to put an S. All right, then I keep my quotation going in the next sentence. In fact, many of them have plenty of leisure time, get a good night's sleep, and do not have to work nearly as hard as people in farming societies. End quote. So here is my quote, my evidence. That was from my second bubble that I wrote about, and you saw me write in my first video. And I also have for my third evidence. Now, what you write on your paper, you may need to tweak in your essay, in your document, when you're typing. And that's what I had to do, because on my paper I wrote, according to this information, if I was a forager, I would have plenty of time to enjoy other things instead of working in a garden. And I thought, I used the quote a different way. Because I used it a different way in a different sentence, I'm going to change it. So I wrote, from this quote found in paragraph 4, so I tell my reader where I found this quote, not just in the article, but what paragraph. I said, from this quote found in paragraph 4, we have examples of less stressful lifestyle. And then I reuse those examples in my explanation. Foraging is a great way to be stress-free because of, here are my two examples, leisure time and more sleep. So, let me repeat. I have the P. My point. Trying to have a stress-free life is hard. Even farmers have it hard. People believe foraging is just as hard or harder than farming. And I'm going to prove that wrong using my quote, my E. I have my P and then my first E. And now I have my third E, my evidence. And at the end of the day, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences. Miss Reese went above and beyond, I guess you could say, because you only needed 3 or 4. Let's look at my second paragraph. My second paragraph has 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences. Now, the quote I used above mentioned working less. My second point from my thesis statement says it requires less work. And I'm also, because of what I used on my paper here in front of me that you hear me wiggling around, I used a different quote from paragraph 5. So, I'm going to use both as evidence. From the quote above, you don't have to re-say it because the author, or as the author, you've already wrote it, and the reader has already seen it in the paragraph above. So all you need to do is say, hey, from the quote above, and this hints to the reader, oh, go back and look. Okay, and now you're giving a new one. And from one in paragraph 5, which explains hunter-gatherers' need to only work for 12 to 15 hours a week to supply their food needs. Let me stop there. I tell you where the quote comes from, but I use it in my own words. I re-explain it in my own words. Because the quote itself says, for hunter-gatherers, however, 12 to 15 hours a week was likely enough on average to supply their food needs. Now, instead of rewriting that, I just decided to shorten it. I said that there is a place in paragraph 5 so the person can go back and read it. And I tell the reader what it says. Hunter-gatherers needed to only work 12 to 15 hours a week to supply their food needs. Now, I need to explain the quote above and what I'm summarizing from the other quote from paragraph 5. And so my explanation is a little bit out of order. Okay. It's in the middle instead of at the very end of the paragraph. Okay, I kind of use my quotes in my point. Sometimes, and we saw this with another student's work yesterday, sometimes your point and your evidence can come together to be your topic, all right? So I've mentioned my quote and where it's coming from. Then I use it to show my topic. Hunter-gatherers needed to only work 12 to 15 hours a week to supply their food needs. And my topic, we can tell foraging requires less work. Okay, so I said, hey, here's my quote, here's my information to back up what I'm saying. Here exactly is what I'm saying right here up to this point. Give you a moment to look at that. And now I finish explaining it. With less time working, I can spend more time with my friends and learn new things. Oh, and look here, I gave some more credentials. Gave some example of some of the new things I could learn. In the video about the agricultural revolution, John Green mentioned some of the things foragers would do in their free time included telling stories and making music. Both are much more fun than farming. All right. In the next video, you'll see me talk about my last paragraph and my conclusion.